Hey YouTube.
Hey YouTube.
Welcome to the Knots YouTube channel. No, it was good. Hi, I'm Maria.
And I'm Ben.
Today we're going to talk about our wedding budget process and how we got from 30K to 62K. When you're planning a wedding, it is so easy to look at national averages and think this is what it's going to be. We learned vendor quotes are going to be your best friend. This was the most expensive day in our lives, of our lives by far.
Yeah.
But it was 100% worth it.
I proposed in the summer of 2021, and we started dating in 2011.
Yes. Once he proposed, we kind of let ourselves soak it in for those last few days of the vacation. But as soon as we got on that plane, I was already brainstorming, okay, what does this look like? When I describe what our vibe, we always think about Palais Garnier in Paris, very opulent gold. That was my Pinterest board. That's what everything was like. And I feel like Ben,
elegant,
yes,
black and white, refined.
It was very easy to, let your mind go and start writing down all these insane ideas that you want because you saw it on Instagram or Pinterest. We had a very rough idea of what we thought we were going to spend, and our vision did not match that budget. So that's,
Yeah.
Wow.
I think the first thing we had to think of was getting all of our locations. The way the Basilica works was they are on a 2-year rolling basis for applications. So literally August 1st when we got back was when we reached out to book the Basilica. Once we got our date, Marie had always thought of the Palais
It's
for
the dream.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
a dream for the reception. When we actually visited the Palais, it was almost a no-brainer to go for it right then.
We spent the most money on our venue.
Yeah.
Our venue wasn't just for the space, but it was also including the catering and then also the open bar. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a all in one package. We wanted our wedding to be very guest-centered, so the guest experience was very important to us. We also wanted we wanted ourselves to feel in the moment and not care about the small things, but really just soak in the day and knowing that it's gonna fly by.
Yeah. And that our family was all there, having it be close and togetherness.
So the main thing that changed between budget 1 and 2 was actually getting vendor quotes, and instead of just looking at the national averages, having the right information, and not just from family members, parents who've got married years and years ago, but people who maybe got married within the last year. I think that's what's really helpful. Understanding the industry and the market today is huge, because there's nothing that prepares you for those first few vendor quotes that you were severely underestimating from the get-go.
Yeah.
There were lots of areas that we just didn't think that we would need. For example, lighting was something that we were not even considering initially, and then we added that in, and that was about 1.5K. Mm-hmm. Transportation for our bridal party, that was something that we didn't even think about when we were first putting our budget 1 together, but then we were like, how are we gonna get there? We're not going to Uber. So just starting to go through and really thinking about the day and some of the vendors that would be helpful to have, and even bumping up Attire, we quickly realized $2K for everything is not very realistic.
Yeah, including rings and other sort of accessories that. Even groomsmen, if we're wanting to help them, tux for me, things like that really add up as you actually break it down.
We started our budget thinking it was all self-funded because we didn't want to assume anyone was going to be helping. And so we kind of if there was gonna, our parents or anyone else that wanted to help, we kind of allowed them to bring it up, because we just didn't even know how to approach the topic. It's kind of uncomfortable. And thankfully, our parents were planning to contribute towards it. And we actually even had some extended family members who reached out and they were like, we'd love to be a part of your wedding and help in some way. So it was completely unexpected, but so appreciative. Mm-hmm. I think it allowed us to think a little bit more about the details of our vision. So I think before we were thinking bare bones type of budget. Like, we're funding it, so we don't want to overspend. But now that we knew that we had some help from friends and family, we were allowing ourselves to think more like, what would make our wedding even better? What are some details that are personalized to us that make sense for us as a couple that we could incorporate throughout the day? So I am Mexican, and my family primarily speaks Spanish. Our marriage was the first event where it sets the stage for both of our families to conjoin. It was really important to us to have an officiant who was bilingual and was able to speak in both Spanish and English. And then also, when we were looking at DJs, we also wanted someone who could MC in both Spanish and English so that both sides of the families felt welcome.
Yeah. We ended up making our own bulletins. When the father was speaking in Spanish, the bulletin would be in English, and vice versa. We spent a lot of time making our own, doing our own work as we could.
Yeah, I would say that was actually one of my favorite parts. It was like those weeknights where we were just making wax seals while we were watching TV. It was just like a great way for us to know that we were doing something very intentional for ourselves that meant a lot to us. And like, maybe the guests wouldn't all see it, but together, I think seeing it all come together on the day of was very magical.
Yeah.
So from budget 2 to budget 3, there were just lots of, I think, what I would say hidden expenses. When you think about a wedding, you just initially don't think about some of the cost of the wedding favors or the cost of just even the hotel rooms, like getting ready spaces. All of those things quickly added up, and we wanted to really make it unique to us. So even like having a personalized guest book with all of our pictures from our engagement photos, that's really where I think it jumped quite a bit from budget 2 to 3. It was just starting to look at all those like line items that maybe don't feel like they would add up too much, but they very quickly do. Initially, I had a starting budget of $2K for my dress, but it ended up being $4K, and that was outside of alterations, which is a whole nother expense that I hadn't even thought about. And then jewelry, like that was something else that I was on the fence about. I was like, I don't know how much jewelry you need for a wedding day. I had a very specific vision for my dress, and I think when we first started, I was like, oh, like I'll be fine with like $2K, like that'll cover my dress, my heels, like everything. And then I started dress shopping, and I was like falling in love with these dresses that were way outside of my budget. And so that's where I had to like come to bed and say, like, I really want to rethink our budget for attire.
Yeah.
Like, there's obviously he wasn't coming with me to the bridal appointments, but I was able to describe like how important it was to me to have a dress that I felt beautiful in. And he was very open to it. Like, I think he was like, yes, like let's see where we could cut the budget, or maybe we can increase it if it's gonna make you happy and it's gonna be, it like makes sense. So that was one area that at first I wasn't prioritizing, but then once I started to try on the dresses, I was like, this is a bigger priority than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
And then we also decided to have Ben's tux custom made. So that was a little more expensive than we initially.
Yeah, we were originally just thinking of having a rental tux, but I tried some of those on, didn't really love them, and then found a place that actually custom-made tuxes, so fit perfectly, went there multiple times, but obviously a little bit more expensive than just renting.
We added tables.
Yeah, we added tables, we got rid of boutonnieres for the extra groomsmen. We changed some of the ideas of how we wanted things to be done, which overall still increased the price. Another one was like florals. Like, I know Maria loves flowers.
Yes.
And so like we've seen all those Instagram, Pinterest boards where you have like walls of flowers, or like every table is completely covered by flowers, and like just so many flowers. And then once you actually learn how much that would actually cost, you could go even hundreds of thousands of dollars if you're trying to get like that. And so that was a big thing we had talked about at the beginning, like, how much do we actually want to spend on flowers to still have it be in our vision? And I know that was a difficult decision to learn, like, one table setting is this much, and like, do we want to have 2, 3? No, we can't really if we want to stay anywhere close to our budget. And in budget 2, we had started out with rings being about $2,000 total, and by the end we had almost $3,000.
And stationery, in our second budget, we had right under $1K, and it ended up being closer to $2K. even with some of the cutbacks that we had done by DIYing some of the items. And then for the reception, there were some items that we hadn't thought about, like the cake. I think it was one piece, and the decorations for the reception as well. So those were additions from our second budget to our final budget that we hadn't included, and that was around $2,000 between the two. And so across the board, looking at each of our line items, they all basically increased. And a lot of that was just those like smaller hidden costs that we didn't think about. But also there's a lot of vendors that do charge like a 20% service fee in our area at least. So that was something that we hadn't initially included in our costs that bumped it up just a little bit. But I mean, altogether, it makes a difference.
Yeah. I know, especially like when I was looking at the budget, it feels like maybe you see like a $1,000 increase in one category or like a $300 increase in another. But then overall, when you actually see the total budget number, that's where it's like, wow, where did all this come from? I think the most meaningful moment was 100% the ceremony.
I always think about our day as like before the ceremony and after the ceremony. Like everything after the ceremony was a nice to have, and obviously it was amazing, but the ceremony was really that defining moment of like 12 years later, like we're finally doing it. We're finally married. When we first started, we had this grandiose vision of we're gonna have designer this and designer that, and once we started to actually look at things, it's like, that's all of our budget if we're going to actually get that. So just being realistic with yourself, having like an open line of communication, and really being honest of like, what are we prioritizing at the end of the day? Like what would make our day feel incredible and authentic to ourselves? So I think that's like huge.
Like what's important to us, like communicate often, have heart-to-hearts about like what is going to make our wedding, and the things that we're going to remember in the future.
I still say I would not change a thing. I think it was the best spent money. Like I think of it as an investment in our marriage, and it was like the perfect way to start our marriage. Yeah.
Just so many great memories. Like the photo book that we have is just amazing. We can look at it. Our video from our videographer is just those are the memories that we really are going to be able to share in the future. In general, I feel like we learn to budget a lot more.
Yes. Currently, our budgeting process is a lot more extensive than what it used to be. And really, it is partly because we were able to see how useful it is to be able to document everything. So now we have a shared budget tracker that allows us to see our budget by category, and we're able to see exactly where we're spending.
Having a sort of like a joint understanding of our budget really helps both of us like be intentional with how we spend our money.
Now we're very intentional about like we want to what we call pay ourselves first. So we want to make sure we're saving and investing before we are looking at all of our expenses, and that allows us to just have that peace of mind that we're going to be okay, like even if something happens on a one-off. So really just allowing ourselves to think about not just like present day, but also the future and like what might come. It is setting ourselves up for success. Our wedding was the first time that both sides of our families had really met. So having everyone that we loved in one room was very special. Like there's like very few times where you get to have that. So when we think about our wedding, I always say like it was worth every penny because everyone that we loved was there. They came and showed up for us, and we were able to dance the night away with everyone, eat great food. It was just like, it was better than I could have expected.
Like obviously our immediate families, since we grew up in South Bend together, like we've been doing stuff for years and years together, but like my cousins, your cousins, extended families who've never met each other before, like to do all the traditional dances together, just all the great memories was just couldn't wish for anything better.
How's it going?
Hi,
Hey.
Amy. So we just wanted to get your point of view from our wedding. Like, what was like the most important thing for you? What did you take away, and what will you remember forever?
You're gonna make me cry. I think the biggest thing that I'll take away that is it just truly showed how much you two love each other, how it was a culmination of all of your years together. So much love from everybody around who was there as well, because they had all seen your love develop over these last 12 years. And I feel like because of the fact that you two were together for so long and all the people who were there knew of the love that you two shared, it made it so much more special for everyone as well.